Hello!
Oh, hello. I thought I'd just start with a quick sip of tea, it'll go cold otherwise. Hi.
Hi. So I obviously know who you are. So could you please introduce yourself for the people who are watching?
Yes, hi, George. Wait, that's watching. You're in the world.
Casting into the
My name is Katrina Mathers. I'm a filmmaker. I work mostly at the moment producing animation, 3D animation. I produced a film called Nullarbor just recently, a short film that's done very well on the film festival circuit. I produced that with a bunch of other people at a company that we set up called the Lampshade Collective. But aside from that, look, oh man, I've done a lot of things. I've been an actor, a writer, a producer of live action and branded content, corporate stuff, television, and a director as well. I've done a lot of short films of my own, like about 15 of them, mostly with no budget, and some with some budget, and some with quite a lot of budget. So yeah, I've done a lot of stuff.
You're a superwoman. Impressed, as I said, my word for you is always impressed.
Go, George.
Okay, so I guess I'll just start with your Nolabor, for the people who may want to know a bit more about it. But what was the inspiration behind Nolabor, from what you know?
Well, the film, Patrick Sarrell, who's one of my fellow directors at the Lampshade Collective, along with Daryl Munton, Pat had the idea of Nullarbor kicking around in his head for a long time, and he teamed up with Alistair Lockhart to direct it with him as a short film. And long story short, we ended up applying for film funding through Film Victoria, and that got the film off the ground. But the idea itself, you probably best talk to Pat because it came from him. But it's kind of an amalgam of a lot of stories that we've heard from people travelling across the Nullarbor. There's a lot of stuff in the film, like there's this old dude sort of kicking back, driving his old jalopy across the Nullarbor, and his feet are hanging out the window, and he's kicking back on the other side of it. The car playing the harmonica, is not even driving. And the thing about the Nullarbor is you can do that because it's such a long road. There's no crossroads, there's no bends in it or anything like that. It's just such a long, straight, dead road.
Yeah.
In fact, Nullarbor, which most people don't know, means no trees in Latin. Most people think it's an Aboriginal word, but it's not.
I was just about to ask.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. Wow.
That's a long-winded answer.
Yeah, learn something new. So funding. How did you go about getting funding for Nullarbor?
Funding. Well,
where should we begin?
That funding is, I've applied for funding for films, either as a producer or a director, so many times in my life. And sometimes I've got close, sometimes I've got down to interview. In fact, sometimes I've been, told that I missed out by this much.
Yeah.
And, when that happens, well, the film doesn't get made, or you go off and make it with no budget or whatever, or it leads to something else.
Yeah.
But the thing about Nullarbor, when we sort of pulled the team together and put the application together to Film Victoria, we just felt that we were in a really good place for the production. I mean, the team had a huge amount of experience, but none of us had made a short film like this before together, certainly not together. But we were really pulling together some incredible experience. So it was a little bit of an unusual case, I think. And certainly, I mean, I don't want to speak for Film Victoria and how they make decisions, but from what I understand, the Propeller Shorts Fund, which is what we got funded through initially, is really a live action fund, and I don't even know if that particular fund still exists anymore.
Yeah.
They don't fund one-off animations, to my knowledge, anymore. We were one of the rare cases that went through as an animation, and we managed to convince them that we could make Nullarbor, which was at the time a 10-minute CG 3D fairly high realism kind of looking film for $111,000, I think was what we applied for.
Yeah.
That's not true. We really did believe that we could do it, and We sort of did. I mean, we delivered the film. It didn't look like the film that is out there in the market. We got to a certain stage in post-production. We delivered the film to Film Victoria, and then we went back to Screen Australia and applied for some additional funding to give it a final render and give it that sort of unique look that I think the film has, and give us a bit more money for marketing.
Yeah. Well, what would you say would be like the key things that you took away from that project?
Oh, so many different things.
Then one.
All right, I think probably the biggest one is that when you go to so much trouble, I mean, we were in production for Nullarbor off and on. It wasn't back-to-back production for about 4 years.
Yep.
So we're doing sort of commercial work and things like that in between. And you work so closely as a team. It's almost like a marriage with the people that you work with. You know, you really got to be able to fight things out and still not hold grudges and still love each other at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And the thing that I think got us through it, and the thing that I guess I take away from it, is that if you really, really, really believe in the product, in the project, in the script, in the team, in your vision, and the people that you're surrounding yourself with, then it'll all work out just fine.
Awesome. Faith them.
And if there's a skerrick of doubt, then address it early on. You know, if you just have that niggling feeling that something's not right in the team or the script or the way you're going about it, then sort it out.
Wow.
So now that we've been funded for another project, it was certainly something that I think helped us get through with the funding for that one too. Was that we really believe in the project and the team and the vision for it, and why we're doing it on a longer term basis as well.
Now, with the funding, did you have to do any sort of pitch, like face-to-face thing, or was it just all through documents, applications?
No, you do face-to-face, but the written application is the first thing that you put together. Yep. So you know, anyone can access the guidelines. Screen Australia fund at the moment, to my knowledge, 2 animations a year up to about 150,000. Yep. And it's got to be a maximum of 15 minutes or something like that, any type of animation. Yep. And you know, you fill in all the guidelines, you follow them really, really closely, and you really need to know how to put budgets and schedules together on. You know, you can't kind of bluff your way through working out how the superannuation works and whether you need an audit and how much. Yeah. You know, all those things that unless you sort of have done those budgets or you've got someone on board that has done that sort of stuff before, it's very hard to get that right. Yeah. And then if you get shortlisted to an interview, then you have to kind of pitch it like you might, I guess, to anyone that has the dollars. Yep. You've got to bring them on board and say, come on, believe in me, or believe in us, is the case, especially with animation. It's rarely just one person.
So, like, did the whole team go to pitch, or was it just like 1 or 2 people that went for the pitch when that came around?
It depends on the application guidelines and how it works, but in this case for the Gallic Captain, which is our new animation, we're collaborating with an author illustrator who's very well known called Graham Bass. Yep. So Graham and us, as the Loungeshade Collective, have developed this particular script, and he's on board now to co-direct with me as a representative of Loungeshade. So Graham was there, I was there, and then Daryl Munton, who's one of our other producers or business partners as well. So the 3 of us went to the interview, but we're kind of representing everybody's voices. Like we have also Mary Jensen is one of our other producers, and a team of animators and people that we have worked with before. That we talk to all of them before we go into an interview about what they love about the script, what they love about the film, and why we want to make it.
Yeah, definitely.
And I say all this nervously because, of course, we haven't made it yet. Yep. Up the internet, people will watch this years from now going, she thought it was going to be good, did she?
Well, you're putting it out to the universe, right? You're saying it is going to be good.
Well, yeah.
Award-winning.
Okay.
Award-winning.
Wow.
One thing I think... may have talked to you about this before, but finding that person who is good with the numbers, like say a person like myself or another animator who has the idea, and may not necessarily be good with the numbers. How do they go about finding, say, the right person to help them out with that?
Yeah, I was thinking about this myself because, in actual fact, when I started making films, I was looking for someone like that too, and I got so bored trying to find someone that I went and enrolled in courses to learn how to do it myself, which is sort of how and why I became a producer in a way.
Yeah.
But I think these days, that's if you're going for that kind of funding through a Screen Australia or equivalent, some of the other, I don't know what the other state funding bodies in Australia have, and certainly around the world, I don't know what other funding bodies have. Because you can do crowdfunding and that sort of stuff now, so you can break the budget down any way that you choose or whatever makes sense. I am setting up a website myself. It's very slow in development because I'm doing it in my spare time with no budget. Macromovie.tv.
Okay, cool.
And I'll put some tips and things like that up on that for people who are trying to, especially if you're going to have a small budget, how to break it down and how much you might need to spend on certain things, mastering or... Depends on what you want to do with your film. But going back to your original question about where you find someone who does know about budgets and things, ask around.
Yeah, of course.
Is one thing. No, seriously. I mean, if you just keep asking your friends and your colleagues and people that you work with, do you know anybody that understands how to do the proper A to Z budgets, which is what it's sort of called, then, you might be able to find someone that would at least have a look at your attempt and go, oh, that's terrible, but... Generally people who've had... In live action, it's if you've had production managing experience, then they might often be looking to produce something for the first time. So I don't know if that's always going to be the same way in animation. It's probably still more a producer, but you're probably looking at someone that's been sort of dealing with some numbers on a bigger production, but they might be looking to go out on their own. Other than that, someone who is insanely organised and is prepared to go off to the AFTRS, the Australian Film, Television and Radio School, and do the production management course. I think Open Channel in Australia, in Melbourne, run a production management course as well, or a budgeting course sometimes. And there's also a thing which all of us use, even if you know how to do budgets, called the Satchel. And if you just Google the Satchel, and I think publish it, it's a little bit, I don't think it's been updated since things like the Quape have come in. I won't even start talking about that.
Okay.
Short film. But this thing called the Satchel kind of talks you through, it matches up like all that A to Z items in the Screen Australia style budgets. And it kind of says, right, at this line item, what they really mean is, this is your production accounting or whatever, and this is a sort of a reporting requirement. When you have funding, you've got to submit reports as to how much you've spent, how much you still anticipate spending, therefore are you over or are you under what you anticipated, therefore how much of your contingency have you used, blah, 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 and it's all about proving that you're going to stay on budget and deliver your film. But even if you're not funded, that sort of thing, or the principle of that is still handy. So the Satchel's out there, it's quite expensive, but sometimes if one person buys it, you might be able to share it.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
For all low budget filmmakers in just about everything.
Well, I guess that brings me up to the next question. How have you managed to supplement your income in between all these projects?
Oh, look, is that the kettle boiling?
I have to come back to this one.
Yeah.
Because it's important for us.
That question, I know. I will answer that question, George, but a few people in my family and friends will be going, yes, and what's she got? No, just going back to your question about finding producers and things like that too. Obviously, you go along to all of the animation festivals and that sort of stuff. And there are also networking sites online like SPA, the Screen Producers Association of Australia, have a fantastic thing called Melting Pot. And I've got links to these, or I will have links to everything eventually on micromovie.tv. Again, I'm going, God, I better set this up now that I've put this out there. Okay. Because you can actually just put the call out saying, I'm looking for a producer, I have no money, but I need somebody who knows about funding. Are you interested in getting some funding? Because if a producer doesn't have credits yet, or perhaps has some credits but needs to up the ante a little bit, particularly if they like your work, or like your script, you just never know. You might find someone that's done some, knows what they're doing, that'll help you with that. And the other thing too is if you see another short film, particularly another Australian short film, that you like, that perhaps has a similar value, not necessarily a similar look, contact that producer. Just because they've produced one doesn't mean they're not going to produce another. Quite the opposite. They might be set and ready to go.
Okay. Yep.
So going back to how do I supplement my...
There's a way I was waiting for it.
I do a number of things. My income just constantly goes up and down, depending on what I'm doing. Sometimes I'm an employee for somebody else. So I've done all sorts of things from, like, I worked for this thing called the Film Festival for a long time, just opening film festival entries and, managing databases or being a film liaison person or something, and I do that just part-time for a couple of years, I think. I can't remember now. I just do, I'd take a job like that if I was in development for something else that was not paying me a lot of money. So you've got to have some income coming in, obviously. But when you want to make your own projects, your own content, if you like, your own films or something, you do spend a lot of time working on things, and you have to, without anybody paying you. And with something like Nullarbor, going back to that, I had spent maybe 2 or 3 years, and Al as well, and a whole bunch of other people making assets and building models and testing rigs and all sorts of things. They've been doing stuff on weekends for years to get it to a point where we had full animatic, we had some working models, we had a whole lot of character sheets. We really knew the world of the Nullarbor and the world of the film going into the funding body at that stage. So, I think, I don't want to say who was doing what job, but let's say that someone's driving trucks, someone's delivering coffee, someone's working as a match mover in, on some big production, just a cog in the wheel in a big production somewhere. You need some money coming in. It doesn't matter what you're doing. I worked in Officeworks for a while because I could get a nice early morning shift that was like 5:30 in the morning, finished at 11, and I could go home and I had all the business hours to set up a business, So... and then on top of that, I still do things like voiceover work. Yes, I'm available. Voice for that and try and sell myself. Or, like occasionally, because my background as an actor, I still occasionally go off and be in an ad. I'll be generic mum number 1 in a Kmart commercial or something like that, and that pays quite a lot of money for one day's work.
And it's working smart.
I'm kind of lucky that I can get that sort of thing, but it's hard to count on that. You can't count on that to work. And then on top of that, I just do corporate gigs, whatever comes my way. So I love branded content. Advertiser says, I don't just want to make an ad, I want to make a web series. I go, can we have a narrative storyline? Can we make an animation? Can we make it?
Nice.
Really, I get really excited. And, so I'll go and do something like that for a month or 6, and you try and fit other projects in and around it. But I'm very nervous going into something like The Gallant Captain because while we've got a funded production, but each of us as the key creatives or key producers and directing team and, key animation team, we're going to work on this for such a long time. And you've got one little fee that's got to spread out over, a dozen people over a year, plus rent, plus your electricity, plus all you've got to pay all your super and award rates and everything. You can't cut too many corners, too many, you're not supposed to cut any. And then you've got all your marketing. I meant to look up how much we spent on Nullarbor Film Festival entries and postage and DVD duplication and that sort of stuff. Because it's just astronomical, that kind of stuff. I mean, when you're going all out like we did on Nullarbor, we were, full on. See from our screening list.
Okay, so I guess with all of that, what do you kind of wish you were taught earlier on? Looking back in
That's
retrospect.
a really good question. I wish someone had said this to me, and I say this to other people now. If you want to make your own films, that's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Go do it. Don't let anybody stop you. Don't let anybody say you can't. And don't let anybody crush your spirit, because if it's in you, you got to do it, right?
Yep.
And I always believed that, and people did say that to me, but what I wish they'd said to me also was this thing. Make yourself really good at one thing. Some position, whatever it is. And in those days for me, I was really stuck in live action. I hadn't kind of discovered animation so much as isolating things, but that's about it. And in those days, I trained in continuity, right? So like a script supervisor or on-set, continuity, anyway.
Yeah.
And I wish, because I was quite good at it, that I really pushed it and made myself the best continuity person there was. So that I could get onto the big productions, so that I could have a little bit of a pick and choose situation of, I'm sorry, I'm taking 3 months off to do my own thing. Because I'm earning enough money from doing this the rest of the year. You get to collaborate. If you're really good at what you do, you work on the bigger, better productions with the bigger, better people. And so you get to meet really great people. So that would be my advice, and I wish someone had really drummed that into me, was make yourself really good at a crew position, a hireable position, something that when all else fails and your film gets made and it doesn't get into any festivals and no one wants to see it, you're trying to work out whether to go and do it all over again. At least you know there's something where you can, put yourself back on a freelancer database or get your show reel updated and refresh your website, and you'll get work as a compositor, a storyboard artist, whatever it might be.
So a fallback.
It's fallback, but I would say if your passion, and this really is the thing, if your passion is to tell your own stories, to be a filmmaker in your own right, rather than to collaborate closely with other people and work on their things, then I wouldn't say it's a fallback. I would say it's a means to be able to do that.
Fair enough.
And I'm still going, are you listening to your own things?
I can just replay this video back for you.
No, I'll have enough friends sending me links. I've just stopped the video at 10 minutes 42 there. Just replay that.
I think that's a good point, because another thing that I was talking to someone recently, and I think she was in a similar place where she had she had been working in the industry for a while, and she went and retrained to be a 3D animator or compositor or something of the sort. But a lot of those type of roles she feels have kind of dried up, or there's quite a lot of competition for those roles now. If you go to look for a lot of animation jobs, or in the film industry or games, there are certain types of roles that are coming up more and more. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yeah, they do. They go in waves, though. That's my thinking about it. Like, there was one time where everybody, you had to learn After Effects. If you didn't know After Effects, you just didn't get a job. And then all of a sudden, if you didn't know Maya, you didn't get a job. And then, somebody else is on, you know what I mean. It's like, there's always something. Now everybody's on Toon Boom instead of Flash. And
really? That's good for me.
Okay, well, it is. But you can kind of try and follow the trends. It's a little bit like keeping up with fashion. You can just stick at doing what you do. There is a lot to be said for, especially when you're starting out, being a little bit of a generalist across a lot of software. Because you don't want to find out about an opportunity where everything else fits, and then, but they're using RenderMan. I've never used that before, and I don't know anything about it, and I don't know. You can't know everything, but at the same time, if you've got downtime, it can't hurt you to jump on a couple of tutorials and just take yourself through some basics, so at least you go, I get where that's coming from.
Well, I guess it's just like, well, I mean, what I was taught, at least for animation, learning all the traditionals, like the basics, the fundamentals of animation. They said, those things, you can always learn the software.
Yeah, you can.
always
Most people, once they get their head around one type of software, generally if you find that an easy enough process, you're kind of adaptable to picking up some other software. And often you might get some training on the job. I suppose when you're starting out that's not so easy, but yeah, but it's true. Again, it just depends on what sort of role you're doing and what sort of role you're going for. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so next question, if you're ready for it. Don't worry, it's not a crazy one. It's what's your view of on the state of animation, the animation industry at the moment? What's your view on it?
Well, I think it's a really interesting place to be at the moment.
Yep.
Because software and access to software is changing so rapidly and becoming so much more available to people that so many more people are taking it up, going, well, I might just give this a shot.
Yeah.
And when you've got so many more people doing things, I think new ideas emerge faster and new voices emerge, and by doing that, new opportunities arise because the traditional old school players have to kind of catch up to people that are just making web series and putting it out there and getting an audience. I mean, think of something like Beach Jazz and how simple that was.
I love that.
There's no commercial network in the world that would have commissioned that based on a proposal.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Yeah.
Oh, crazy. The fact that they just went, well, we're just doing it, and there's an audience. What's the problem?
Yeah.
This is stuff, and people like this stuff, and they're watching this stuff, so that's great. What I like, though, is that the ADC picked that up and ran with it and developed it and pushed it further and gave those guys an opportunity to then create work, from something that they did. And I think... a couple of things that I've got in development at the moment are web series because I think that's sort of just cutting out the middle person, if you like.
Yep.
It's happening more and more, and I think that's exciting for people working out of their bedrooms.
Awesome.
It's exciting for people who have ideas and don't know the system. I don't think it will stop the bigger productions or the traditional way of things happening, but I think audiences are watching stuff more and more online, and audiences are just seeking out what they want, and if something tickles their fancy, they watch it. So you've got a much better chance of reaching an audience. And then I also think one of the things that I'm loving at the moment is this kind of mashup of media and platforms, and the way that we just tell stories and the way we interact with stories is all just going crazy.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, for me, as a multitasker, I guess, and people would say, look, you're never going to make it as an actor if you keep trying to make films, or you're never going to make it as a producer if you keep trying to also be an actor or a writer or something. You go, no, to me, it makes sense that you bring it all together.
Yes.
And I'm excited that these days that kind of multidiscipline thing can work a lot more.
Yep.
And what else about the animation industry? Well, I mean, we're starting to sell animated features finally in Australia.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, there was Dot and the Kangaroo back in the day, but, there's a big, long gap into things like Mary and Max. So, that's exciting for us for Lampshade, because we want to be making features down the track. So
awesome.
That's what we like to do, and I think there's more opportunity. I think there's also more opportunity to work with people overseas. When I did a job where I had an animator working in Vancouver.
Yep.
And we just put stuff up online and Skyped at night, and I'd get client feedback during the day. The client didn't even know that I had an animator, working overseas on this particular job. They don't care. As long as I'm delivering as the producer what they want, that's fine. And as long as I can still talk to the people that I'm working with, that's great.
Yeah.
We had our composer on Nullarbor, and it'll be the same for Gallant Captain. Not composer, sorry, our sound designer
Yep.
is also in America. So, I think that sort of collaboration is completely different and opens up a whole lot of new opportunities. I think you can access people now through things like LinkedIn and Facebook. You can get online and have a chat with someone at Pixar and, just happened to get on the right thing at the right time.
Yeah.
And webinars, all that stuff. I think information is so much more available. I hope you're going to read at this because, God, I dribble on.
Don't worry, we're near the end. We're near the end. Now, this is valuable stuff. Don't undervalue yourself. I'm loving this.
Good.
But you pretty much answered what the last question was, which was what opportunities do you see emerging on the web for animators? And you mentioned the web series, the crowdfunding, and I think different parts in the last hour you've mentioned. But is there anything else that you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, look, I think, YouTube are doing some really interesting things at the moment with encouraging people to set up their own channels.
Yep.
And in fact, if you hunt around on YouTube, they've got some guidelines, in fact, on how to do that and what they're really looking for in terms of wanting to partner with people.
Yep.
And from what I can gather, what they really mean is you just sort of sign up and agree to have ads play on your content.
Yep.
But the thing is, if you can find a way to create something cheaply and regularly and build an audience for yourself, then you can use a YouTube or a Vimeo or something like that where you can get your content up and out there and straight to the audience and get some feedback. And if you get an audience, if people are really liking what you're creating, then you can create little streams of revenue directly off that just by agreeing to have some ads play. And I think more and more as a consumer of the product, we don't mind seeing ads if they're sort of relevant to our own interests.
That's true, yep.
Like if they're advertising a new storyboarding tool or something that is quite cheap and it's great for 3D animators because they've done some Google Analytics on the sites that you visit and worked out that that's what you might be interested in.
Yep.
If you get that ad pop up before watching something that some other animator or someone else has made, I figure you'd be quite happy to see that and go, yeah, cool. You might even click on it. You might even buy it. And that works. It's a whole new business model instead of just traditional free-to-air television where there's a whole bunch of people in suits, going to lunch at the pub and drinking while they make all these decisions.
Yeah.
And you don't have any say is what I mean.
Yep.
You don't have any say when you make something and it goes on to telly and, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I think there are definitely new opportunities, but it's still a lot of hard work, and I think you still need a plan for what you're trying to achieve and where you're trying to go and how people are going to hear about you, and you still need to have some income coming in.
Yeah.
Crowdfunding is definitely worth looking at, and I think now is definitely the time for crowdfunding. Don't wait too long if you're thinking about it because it might get a bit saturated out there with so many people. I just saw something on, I can't remember whether it was, I think it was Possible. I can't remember now, but where someone has offered as a reward for crowdfunding, because of course people are not investing in your work, and they're actually, they're buying something.
Yeah, they're getting something.
One of the rewards is that you get to travel into space.
What?
One. Yes, I know!
That's insane!
I know. So,
holy cow!
I'll send you the link for that because I wish I had some spare cash. I would spend the project just for the raffles.
Yeah, holy cow!
How cool would that be?
How connected is that person?
Yeah.
My God.
Well, I think it's quite a big organisation or something. I didn't look into it properly, so I don't want to.
Yeah.
Try and second guess what it is. But my point is that people are starting to get a little bit more creative.
Yeah.
Not just you'll get a DVD or you'll get your name in the credits, which people want. But people are starting to get a little bit more interesting with what they're offering, and I think that'll become more and more a key.
Good point. I think I remember also seeing, I think it was on Kickstarter, but a woman got funding to name her baby.
Right.
I don't know how, But yeah, she got a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
For the birth of her baby and the naming of her baby.
It's a novelty. It's almost like a reality game in itself.
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
It's like the crowdfunding game where you're working out what you're going to give your $5 to.
Yeah.
Or your $500 or whatever you can afford to donate. But I certainly don't have a huge amount of money, but I have supported quite a few projects just because I go, well, I like those guys, and if they want to take their show to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival or something and they can't afford to do it without a little bit of help, then if I give them $10 and another 100 other people give them $10, they could probably go. That's a cool thing.
Yeah.
That's a really cool thing.
And I guess it's funny because, we're also in a period where a lot of people are talking about how, the global financial crisis, and saying there's not enough money, and yet crowdfunding is taking off.
Yeah.
Right? I found that quite interesting because even when I started with it, I was quite surprised. And I was like, wow, people are actually giving me money to do this. And even my auntie, she was like, how, you mean to tell me people are just giving you money and, for your animation? It's like, don't they have jobs or, families? And I said, yeah, of course. But because it's more connected on a global scale, a little bit from each one does go a long way.
Yeah, I think there's a sense of ownership as well that, the kind of people that are donating like to have an engagement with what they're watching.
Yeah.
Like, I think, I suppose I'm guessing that other people are like me, but I'm fascinated by other people's process along the way, right? So if I give you some money and you, in return for that, sort of share your experiences as you go through the process and you keep me in the loop with how it goes, then when you have a success, I feel like it's a little bit of a win for me too. Good, I picked a good one.
True.
So it's all kind of connected, and I think that's really nice.
Yeah. Aww. It's the social aspect, it seems to be coming out more and more in social media first, then, with the crowdfunding, then social entrepreneurship now. It seems like it is, coming back to a more collective thing.
And it certainly works when the vibe is good and when people really follow their passion and they really believe in what they're doing and supporting each other. I'm a big fan. We've spoken about this before, but I'm a big fan of supporting each other in the industry and sharing information, because if you hold all your cards to your chest and you don't share, then I think, all that happens is you just sit there with your own stuff and you don't get the audience kind of loving what you do, blah, 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 blah. I just think you share what you do, you make for a stronger industry.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Kat. It was wonderful and beautiful talking to you.
It's a pleasure. Look, I'm happy to chat. I don't know how much help it really is, but
I know it's going to be valuable because a lot of these things, I think a lot of people, from what I've gathered so far from even the animators that I've talked to, is that they're always talking about if we only knew or had access to people who have done it already and their own stories, because we always hear the successes, but the struggle stories, I think that's equally as important to let them know that, it's great at the beginning, right? But also these things are like long-term things too, especially if you're going into it for your own films, you need to sort of have that endurance to get through it. And
absolutely. And one thing that a friend of mine said to me actually when I was sort of flailing a little bit with where I was going in my career some time back, I was a bit lost and bouncing off walls. They just kind of went, just imagine this. Just think of yourself 5 years from now doing exactly what you want to do. And, within reality, but make it good. Yeah. So that you're just sitting there 5 years from now going, man, I feel good about where I'm at. This is exactly where I want to be. And imagine that everything is just handed to you on a silver platter, but within reason. You don't tell anybody what that is. Just hold that thought in your head, and now think back to what you're doing now. Is that contributing or helping you along that path? Yeah. Or are you off your own path? Are you kind of walking this way when you want to be over here? And I realised that I kind of went, I want to be here. Like, it's a really clear vision. But here I am getting stuck in a rut trying to do this and this and this and this. And I realised I was just like a mouse kind of turning on my own wheel, and I wasn't going anywhere, and I certainly wasn't going there.
And that reminds me of that quote: "Judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, and it will live its whole life thinking that it's stupid."
Yeah. Same. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Kat.
Cheers, George. Well, check back in on Micromovie every now and then and tell me what you want to see, because I'm happy to put more vlogs up on my side as well, and share the love.
Definitely, I'll pass people through to you. It's all about the sharing.